Welcome back, everyone, to ITYT Live here. Evan Veith, RT Young, on the University of Texas at Austin campus, very close to the Frank Denise Fields, where Texas football just had their first spring practice. RT, a lot going on this year with the spring practice, but of course, we're going to talk about Arch Manning first. What did you see from the young quarterback?
Obviously, with Arch, he commands a huge presence. You see Arch run by, and everyone's heads turn. So obviously, that was the first takeaway. Just like the emotion that just Arch Manning runs by guys who have been seasoned media members for decades. That's a pretty unique experience. Obviously, got to see Arch go through some passing drills with all the wide receivers, and the wide receivers were definitely an interesting observation we're going to talk about in a second. I think it's for sure anyone's game behind Ryan Wingo. I saw a lot of mixing of the positions, or a mixing of the hierarchy, if you will, with wide receivers. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and I know a lot of our readers and listeners will love to know that Arch is undeniably this QB1. There was no question about it. It was him, Owens, then Lacey. Arch looks as big as he did last year. He had some great balls. There was one especially that I saw where Sarkisian whooped out in the air and audibly gasped at how nice the deep ball was, I think, to Parker Livingston down towards the end zone. So Manning looked really good in his first day. Even the misses he made, you can hear him yelling maybe some expletives at points down the field. And he's just committed to what's going on. Seems like the team gravitates around him. I know we wanted to talk a lot about running back today because it's just a position that's got a lot of injury, intrigue, and a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. But you saw Christian Clark out there, and it seemed like he looked healthy as ever.
Yeah, Christian Clark seemed like he was a full participant. I didn't notice any bandage, any brace, anything on his torn Achilles tendon from last year. So I thought that was impressive. He obviously is a load, and he looks really impressive.
Yeah, and I think something you show up on the numerical sheet, the roster sheet we've been given, is CJ Baxter's up 10 pounds from last year. We didn't get to see him out here today. He might have just been working more behind the scenes on some rehab stuff. But yeah, he's gotten more muscle, assuming, and that's what you need from a player going in the trenches more. As Clark, hopefully that home run hitter. We didn't see a lot of the specific running back drills or much of new coach Scott, but it seems like Jarrett Gibson, Baxter, Wisner are the guys to look out for. And Wisner, I'll say, he's still doing everything from special teams to gunning, punt returning. He was out with the first team gunners out there. So a lot going on with Wisner, but he's going to be a consistent part of this running back group no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he burst onto the scene his freshman year because of special teams play. Trey Wisner's a total football player, so you don't want to take him off special teams. On special teams, did notice that I think we had Aaron Butler was the first to return punts. Ryan Wingo was also returning punts, but I didn't notice him as the first one returning punting. Before we go back to the offense real quick, I want to mention looked much improved with Jack Meester.
Yes.
That's going to take me a while from last year, obviously. Yeah.
I think as we get towards the wide receivers there, like you mentioned earlier, it didn't seem like there was a true hierarchy in place yet. Ryan Wingo definitely the number one. I will say that Parker Livingston was someone who really impressed me. His cutting on the cone drills looked really good. He was ahead of Wingo on some of his reps. Really looked good going down the field, showing off a little bit of, not full speed, but how he's going to get down the field. The first team seemed to be him and Wingo at the moment. Second team was Aaron Butler, and I think it was JB French there, and then Khalil Lockett. And surprisingly, Michael Terry, as we reported, is working on the outside right now. Dalen McCutcheon definitely going to be the slot receiver of the future. Didn't take any of the outside reps, but like you said, it was kind of a clog. What did you see in that group of the sophomores, redshirt freshmen, and true freshmen out there?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously saw Steve Sarkisian and Chris Jackson coaching those guys hard, especially Sark. I noticed multiple times throughout the practice and different drills, coaching freshman Michael Terry, who's working at the wide receivers really hard. Notice some things that you would expect from freshman wide receivers, more body catches than hand catches at times, maybe a few miscommunications, especially on crossing routes over the middle with Arch and Trey Owens. I think there was one little sequence that the media members on the sideline were all laughing because they had like 3 or 4 drops in a row.
Yeah.
So it just shows that wide receiver, it's the first day of spring practice, and it's going to take time for this unit to fully gel with the coaches. I didn't see DeAndre Moore out there today.
Yeah, he's got that injury that he's dealing with. He's on our roster. One thing we will note is that as far as I can tell, I've scanned it a couple times. We haven't seen Freddie DeVos on this roster sheet. Doesn't have a number, didn't see him at practice. Might just be an error. Not 100% sure, not going to speculate too far, but didn't see him out there. I will say one of the connections I thought worked really well was the Trey Owens, Jamie French, which obviously you're not going to see immediately here on campus, but it seemed like, especially on the crossing routes, French was getting his hands out there, making some catches. Khalif Lockett was one that I saw had a few drops, but that'll happen. And you mentioned the coaching of Chris Jackson, which is always going to be a big thing, the NFL pipeline, but Jeff Banks, man, with Jordan Washington, you especially saw it. He was going in on him in pretty much every rep he had, and it seemed like the sole focus was to get Washington up to speed. And you made a comparison that I think you should drop here.
Yeah, I really reminded me of IT's reporting back in the day of how hard Jeff Banks coached Jatavian Sanders, because obviously Jatavian Sanders was a athlete. He was a wide receiver in high school. Getting him up to speed to play D1 tight end at a high level, took a big learning curve, but a lot more is expected of Jordan Washington this year. He's been in the program longer. He's going to slide into that gunner helm role for all we know. So Jeff Banks was coaching him extremely hard. Lots of expletives being thrown around, really trying to get Jordan Washington to be physical, come off his blocks, move his feet. And he was coaching Spencer Shannon hard too, but it was really all focused on Jordan Washington.
Yeah, and I think one thing you have to realize as well with this tight end room is this is not the final product we're seeing. You really only see like 3 players. Maybe you can add Will Randall at the end of that, but Washington, Shannon, and then of course freshman Amari Winston. But Nick Townsend's not on campus yet. We've reported a lot that this may not be the end group of tight end. This might be a transfer portal look, but like you said, I think Jordan Washington is a player that's just going to be super important to this Texas team, and getting him right is the number one job. So if there's anyone that you come in and hope that there'd be a one-on-one coaching session with, one that really got to the players, it's Banks with Washington. We know Banks kind of has the Midas touch with the tight ends with Helm and Sanders. So Washington looked pretty good on some of his reps, definitely had some choppiness in his route running. Winston looked a little bit raw, and Shannon looks big. You can see that kind of 6'7" frame I think he's listed at right now. So there's going to be a lot of focus on the blocking, which we can transition a little bit into here. I saw the only real drills I saw from the offensive linemen, which I'm not sure if that was just on purpose, if they were doing some other stuff behind the scenes, but I saw tight end tackle blocking schemes a lot, getting the tight end out to the linebacker, offensive tackle onto the quasi-defensive lineman. Saw Kojo and Baker definitely going at it. That was the two that you really are focusing on, because Gooseby's probably got that left side taken down, but Kojo and Baker is going to be a big storyline of this practice. There's obviously Nick Brooks reported on. I didn't see him out there in that group. It was really a short period of time before we were edged off. But this offensive line group seemed really important this year, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the Brandon Baker, Andre Kojo, that is going to be a big matchup at right tackle. I really didn't get to see the offensive line. I was about to go walk over there, and then I got so enthralled, like we just talked about with the Jeff Banks coaching of the tight ends, that I stuck around the tight ends. So,
yeah, the majority of this practice, most of what we saw was from the pass catchers and that punt group. The gunners were really getting down the field. That was something that Coach Jackson and Coach Banks were really harping on. We're going to take a quick break right here before we get over to the defense.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the Lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the Lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
We're back. First day of practice, of course. Talking about the defense here. A lot of new numbers there. Colin Simmons taking that number 1. You saw Jelani McDonald out there a lot. Jalen Gilbo in the cornerback room. Is there any room that you saw most of that you think had some interesting things going on this game?
I'm a fan, so I got distracted several times. I was watching a Dwayne Akina, Michael Huff conversation, so my mind wanders, Evan. So I apologize for that.
No, you're all right. And the defense wasn't exactly the focal point of this practice. I will say, kind of on the top of Akina, this whole defensive back group, coaching wise and even personnel wise, is very different from last year. No Jade Barron, no Andrew Makuba, and then Terry Joseph is one of the people that went off to the NFL, played Gideon off to Georgia Tech. So Akina and Orphey are some guys that I was keeping my eyes on. Akina is very active. They have this one drill where they're motioning players. You're going left with the defensive back group, you're going right, keeping your feet active at all times. And he's in the middle of that group screaming at the players to keep their feet moving. But what really stuck out to me about Mark Orphey was he really had this knack for getting individual players out and into one-on-one and two-on-two drills. He used Michael Taft as an asset a lot, which I think is going to be an important thing for this group going forward, is that Taft was taking along, I think it was Zealous Hicks and Jordan Johnson-Rubel specifically in drills about footwork, keeping their eyes on the receiver that they're covering. Rubel and Hicks eventually are going to be the guys covering tight ends, getting on the slot receiver. So having Taft there with Orphey and talking extremely technical footwork, hips, all those kind of things was really impressive to me. I thought Orphey had a good command of the group so far.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that stood out to me too is just noticing almost on the defensive end, different number 16, but Michael Taft's presence and his command over the room. I mean, he is absolutely a veteran. He's respected. He's a coach on the field. He looks bigger to me than he did last season, so he looks obviously very impressive, but he has full command of the defense, and obviously you feel really good about the defense's ceiling with somebody like him coming back for year 5.
And I think some of these young players really stood out to me. Caleb Chester was working really fast. He was doing pretty much everything on the field. He was working as a gunner, working on the defensive side of the ball. Like you said, Umeya Zulu, who's not exactly a new player on the team, but getting him out and maybe that Trey Moore role is what they're looking for next year would be important. We didn't get to see a lot of reps from the linebackers, so not much support on from Hill, LaFoe, Moore, if he's going to fully move over there yet. But defensive back was something that really showed out. And these defensive tackles, I only got to see them more from a distance, but they're big. I'll give that to the scouting department. When you're looking at Brevard and Shaw and those new guys, even Hiro Kanu, Justice Terry, we saw a little bit of. These guys are giants. They're big human beings, and that's, of course, the start for Texas football. It can't just be the big guys clogging the trenches, but those are players that seem like they're going to fit in. They seem to have the profile that Sarkisian likes. So that's at least a good sign moving forward as they're coming into spring practice, looking like they're NFL even ready with their shape.
Yeah. I mean, one of the first things that jumped out to me just when we first walked out there, and it goes, in line with what we saw in this past year, Eric Naleen's reporting and, his article. He had a great article during the season about Sarkisian has really transformed into a total football coach.
Yes.
And I think when we first walked out there, he was yelling at people about the way that they were tackling, the way that they were dropping their hips. And, I thought, obviously, our football experience is probably pretty limited, but the head coach, if he's an offensive coach, I only remember ever talking to the quarterbacks, and then they give you a speech at the end of practice. Obviously, it's a lot higher level what we're dealing with here at the University of Texas, but I was just really amazed with how Sarkisian was immersing himself in almost every drill, really until the very end, until we really got that focused Arch Manning and Trey Owens, KJ Lacey passing time. So. Yeah,
and I think to start off practice, the first thing we saw was it wasn't a whole team. You didn't have the offensive lineman and defensive lineman on it, but most of the players on the team just doing straight tackling drills, wide receivers, linebackers, everyone together, and each player individually, whether it's the walk-on freshman on the team or a true veteran like Taft, is getting yelled at by Sarkisian or Chris Jackson or whoever's on the team there. And one thing that really strikes me on the field is compared to what I've seen before with this group is you're really seeing all these coaching hires come into fruition. There's so many new guys that came in and so many names, so many positions that they're coaching, and you don't really realize how many coaches are on this team until you go on the field and you're saying, wow, this guy's going over here with the edge group, this guy's here with the wide receivers, but then there's a whole nother group of people. PK can be anywhere he wants on the defense because he's got an edge group with Alan Clark, and Orphey and Akina can each do their own things in the defensive back group because they both have the ability to coach all of those positions. So it really struck me that there's a lot of people in rhythm in talking with all these players. And even, you saw Jordan Whittington and Adonai Mitchell make an appearance on the sidelines there, talking to Brandon Harris. So just a lot of people, a lot of names, a lot of new faces here. And this team is new. It's obviously a lot of people that you're missing, but it seemed like a positive practice from the start and really hitting the ground running with how Sarkisian was coaching them.
Yeah, I mean, I was amazed at the speed of practice, just in the way that everybody, knew their assignments. It's clearly still a veteran leadership team, despite, the losses that they might have seen coming off of last season. But, I was really impressed by that. And then, getting into what you said about all the coaches, all the people involved with this program, it almost doesn't even take into account. You still have a Thorpe Award winner, Michael Huff, on the field observing everything, still giving out little pointers. You still have a Butkus and Nagurski award winner in Derek Johnson, who participates and has a huge role with the linebackers during the season as a volunteer coach. So there's a lot of fingerprints on this program that are sending it in the right direction.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were kind of clamoring for Huff to be the next coach up, but wouldn't you rather have this guy taking his own role, doing whatever he can do to help these players, while also having Dwayne Akina and Mark Orphey over there? It seems like the best matches that they could have found for these players. RT, if there's anything you could get from this spring practice, see a development out of, what would you want to see of any of these position groups? Really, a player to stand out, a competition to be won. What are you looking out for this practice period?
Yeah, I think just what I observed, really how does the wide receiver rotation shake out after Ryan Wingo and after DeAndre Moore once he is healthy, obviously, in seeing who are the guys that Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian can rely on, and who can the fans get excited about, because that's a perspective I come from, going into next season.
Yeah, and the big play players are obviously as important as ever in this time in college football, but I'm really looking to the interior of both lines here. You need to see Neto Umeozulu, who, from all it sounds like, has been a guy who's won a job here, but it needs to be him and Cole Hudson really securing those positions, and also defensive tackle, like we said. Brevard and Shaw look big, but are they big enough to be in the trenches in the SEC? It's something they've never done yet. Shaw, former 5-star, I think could be a big run stopper for this team, but a lot going on here in Austin as spring practice is underway. Great time of the year, as always, with Inside Texas. $1 for 4 months here to learn everything you can about spring practice. Texas baseball is obviously doing well this weekend. Xavier head coach is now the Texas head coach, Sean Miller. His press conference today somehow with spring practice starting. So much going on.
Pro day and a baseball game.
Yeah.
All today. Yeah,
and then women's basketball is coming up as well. So much going on at the University of Texas. There's no better place in the world to learn about what's going on with spring practice, the rest of the stuff going on here than Inside Texas. $1 for 4 months here, new time only deal. Come get your subscription, and thank you all for watching today. We're going to have a lot more about spring practice off with articles, videos. We're obviously going to talk Sean Miller's basketball tomorrow, Keenan Womack and I. RT, anything else before we sign off?
I don't think so. I'm excited.
We're all excited here in Austin. So have a good one, everyone. Thanks for watching, and see you later.